Hello. So, I was thinking about why I draped my sari differently when I was at my convocation in Glasgow, and people asked me why I did that. So, I usually give this short answer, which was I just wanted to drape it like that because I like it. And that's true, but that isn't the real answer. The real answer started almost 6 years back in my second year of college when we got a brief to design a furniture using a piece of Pipli applique. Now, for those of y'all who don't know what Pipli applique is, it's an applique craft from Odisha, which is basically having these little patches stitched onto a bigger fabric. And it's used in a lot of canopies and religious functions, and it's a big deal there. It's very old and very specific to that part of the country. And I thought my job was to use the craft. But somewhere during that project, I realized that it was something deeper. I realized that the interesting part was not the motives, it was understanding why the craft existed in the first place. The brief wasn't make it look nice, the brief was translate it. Take the craft that exists in one form and translate it into another as a furniture language. So I didn't think about that as a big idea, but the word translate stayed with me longer than I expected and long after the project lasted. So, a few years later, when I did move to Glasgow for my master's, my thesis ironically wasn't about Indian crafts, it was about reviving Scottish heritage crafts through some part of. Sorry. Okay. So I started doing a thesis on reviving Scottish crafts and trying to explore different techniques on how that could be done. And I landed up on designing an education system. I spent months researching disappearing techniques and crafts in Scotland, reading histories, going to Scottish national museums, and trying to understand why some crafts survive and others slowly disappear. And while I was doing that, something unexpected kept happening. The deeper I went into Scottish craft and history, the more I kept finding India. Trade routes, textiles, block printing, colonial exchange, entire histories that had traveled across continents but are often told in fragments, separated into neat little boxes depending on who was writing them. It made me realize that the culture had never been static. There was always some sort of cultural some of it happened through colonization and unequal systems of power, but either way nothing existed in isolation. So once I understood that, I couldn't see craft the same way again, and I realized that I don't actually believe that preserving crafts means freezing it in time. I think craft survives because someone somewhere understands it deeply enough to translate it. And that doesn't mean imitation or not to modernize it for the sake of trends, but to translate it and to ask if this craft was created today, how would it look or what would it become? Or what would it become without it losing its soul? So when I graduated in Glasgow, wearing a sari felt somehow obvious to me, but wearing it exactly the way it has been worn didn't tell the full story either. I was standing in Scotland holding an Indian identity, carrying years of studying craft, history, and design with me. So I wasn't trying to make the sari look Western, I was trying to reinvent it, and I was trying to simply translate the moment I was living in. Looking back now, that would be where the idea of Kari Canteen was somewhere born in terms of product design for me. Um, and it's what looked like when I thought of giving it a form. The belief is simple to say, but took me years to actually understand it. Expression without a point of view is just decoration. So the point of view always came first. The brand is just what was left once I got specific about what I actually believed in. So for the longest time, I felt guilty that I wasn't launching fast enough, that there were months wherein it looked like nothing, absolutely nothing was happening. There was no products, no announcement, no talking about it on social media, no building a brand. It was just reading, researching, visiting artisans, traveling the country, writing about it, and sitting in a slump, feeling incredibly lonely. Because when you work alone, it's very easy to wonder if you're moving too slowly, especially when the world celebrates speed, right? But then I realized that I wasn't trying to build any catalog or any specific template that people have told me to follow, but I was trying to build a way of seeing and a way of understanding, and it grows every time you make something. Because I didn't want to learn something because before I fully understood it, before I fully understood what I was building, I wanted to get to the bottom of it first. And that is not a humble brag, it's just what I think it cost. So a few days ago, I wrote something that has been sitting with me for a while. I wrote that Kari Canteen isn't really a brand, it's a point of view. And I know I've been saying point of view, point of view, point of view quite a lot of times across social media platforms, but I do mean it like that. And I think this story explains why. Because Kari Canteen didn't begin when I decided to start a company. It began years ago when I became obsessed with the question, how do we carry craft into the future without asking it to become something else? I'm still searching for that answer, and I'm still hoping that I build a brand that justifies that while I do it. And maybe that's what Kari Canteen really is, a collection of translations. And this is just what I wanted to convey through this little story time. All right.